Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing absolutely wonderful today. Just gonna sit here and fiddle with this for a second. Welcome to book night. We haven't seen each other for a little while, and that happens. It happens sometimes. Sometimes we spend a little time apart. That's okay. Everybody needs a little time, right? But I would just like to say I'm so happy to be with all of you now. Just getting into this wonderful zone where we can spend time together. Much needed time. Another Saturday is upon us, and there are so many things to say about Saturday. Obviously, with Saturday comes your Saturday night. And it's hard not to be happy about that. Amongst many other things, many other reasons to be together. Book nights have become a bit special as of late. We've been reading through Volume 1 of Without the Light, Penance and Toil. It's a book that has a great deal of meaning for me, and it has so many different layers of meaning for me. So it's wonderful to be able to get into that space together, to enjoy that time together, to explore this fantasy, and really get in touch with a lot of the concepts and a lot of the ideas that come along with it. Even the space that we inhabit together here on book night, reading from Without the Light, it's unique. It's special in its own way. The lighting, the atmosphere, the position of the microphone, all of it linked to this shared moment, this shared time, where we get to be together and really delve into tough things, difficult storylines, and so much more. Now I'm going to start off. It was in the initial screen and it is in the description for the video, but I will remind you there is a trigger warning for this particular wrong thing. There we go. Just making sure that is up, because there's a trigger warning for this particular series in regards not just to the subject matter, but also, even though it's fantasy, some of these things touch deeper for us than, not everyone will be hit the same way by everything, but due to subject matter amongst themes and characters and actions taken by them, there is always a trigger warning when it comes to Without the Light. The same goes for my series In Absentia and most of my other fiction. I do not take it lightly, even if sometimes there's a nonchalantness to the writing in regards to how we approach and then move past the difficult subjects. Now, before we get going much further, I do hope that the sound is clear. I hope the video is clear. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to give you a visual descriptor for those of you who are listening. I have long brown hair, glasses. I'm wearing a black shirt. I have this wonderful dark shade of lipstick on right now. It was a gift from my best friend. Couple thumb rings, bracelets. Behind me, one of my paintings. We are here in the study and studio area where I normally join you from. And of course, I have this wonderful microphone hanging down right in front of me, so that the sound can come through as clear as is possible. There's nothing I want more than the clearest sound, the best audio, so that everyone can enjoy this together. I really want book nights to be the most clear, the most understandable, the most enjoyable experience they can be. I want you to have an enjoyable experience. I want you to have a wonderful night here. I want us to explore and have fun in the fantasy realms I've created, even when sometimes the story turns dark. Though the name of the series is Without the Light, I want you to keep in mind that we live in a world where the light is very much there, and sometimes it's hard to see, but the light is there, waiting for you. Waiting for you to see it. Even when it's hard. Of course, I have my drink on hand because I am going to be doing a lot of reading, and therefore, all that use of my voice, I'm going to need to stay hydrated. So, I remind you right now, go get yourself a drink. Make sure that you have one in hand. Stay hydrated. Stay refreshed. We have places to go. So many places to go. Before we move much further, if you have not seen the first two videos in this series, if you weren't here for those lives, there's going to be a link somewhere nearby in the chat, so you can go to my YouTube and you can watch the first two videos. Each one's almost an hour and a half long, but I'd rather you catch up with us so that you don't feel lost. But you're more than welcome. Stay here. Continue to listen if you'd like, and you can catch up with those later. Or yes, go watch the other two videos, and then as a group we can all catch up together. Do forgive my throat. I'm going to do my best to not let that get in our way tonight. But I've had a bit of a bug, as it were. Now, just as the fastest of recaps as possible, and again, if you've not seen the previous two videos, go catch up to those, because, spoiler warnings if you've not read my books or if you haven't seen those videos. This entire series is nothing but spoilers. Spoilers left and right. But that I can't even complain about that. Normally I complain about spoilers in videos, but with something like this, technically the entire series of these videos is going to be spoilers. And that's just the way. Now, before we go any further with this particular video, I've also just dropped something down in chat for anyone who might need it. Because, yes, we are going to be talking about some difficult subjects. Some things are going to come up, which may or may not be upsetting. And I'd just like to remind all of you out there, no matter what you're going through, that there are people who will listen, and there are people who care, and they want to listen, and they want to help you, and there is a brightness in the world for all of us. So I just provided something in chat. It'll appear, depending on where you're joining me, somewhere nearby. And that is the Lifeline number if you ever need it. And just one more thing that I have to share before we get going. I know sometimes these introductions are longer than others, but also down in the chat you're actually going to find a link to my digital gallery where you can find my art. Now, I'd like to let everyone know that I now have art prints. There's currently 8, I believe. As of the moment of this video, there should be 8 art prints. If you'd like to get some of my art, but maybe picking up an original piece might be not something you can do at the moment, consider picking up an art print. Every art print that is sold is going to go directly into helping fund indie art, indie film, indie books. You're supporting the arts in the most direct manner possible. And as I said, there's currently, I believe, 8 available art prints. There's going to be more of those soon in my digital gallery, and there's going to be a link somewhere nearby that you're going to see in chat. If you pick up an art print, do understand some of them are only going to be available for a limited time. Once they are sold out, they are gone, and they will be moving on. So consider picking yourself up some. You never know. You might be considering doing some decorating around the home. Maybe you want to put something in your cafe, your club, your restaurant, your office, your workspace. Maybe you have a studio and you need something fun. Add a little spice to that space. Ah, the train going by. You know, you can't plan for certain things like that. For the most part, the train goes by at very specific times. Occasionally, it comes by when I don't expect it. You never know what's going to happen. But yes, do consider going to my digital gallery, getting yourself an art print, supporting indie art, indie film, and indie books all at once. Because with every single print sold, you are directly funding independent art. Its creation, its generation, our ability to submit films to festivals, our ability to make films, our ability to provide things like the art workshop every month. All the books and short stories and poetry that I put out, every single one of those art prints that is purchased is fueling independent creation. So I know it's a bit of a long plug, but I think it's a really important one. Each and every one of us needs to really consider, you know, if we can if we can support one another, we'll all go further. And that's just the bottom line. And, of course, because it is why you are here, our last link for the time being, and then we're going to be getting going. I've just provided you with a link to the Amazon listing for Without the Light, which is available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. That's going to be somewhere nearby. Pick yourself up a copy. Support independent authors, and please, if you get a copy, leave a review. Your reviews matter so much more than you may realize. For an independent author, when a reader leaves a review, they're providing the most tangible means by which other readers may find, may see, may know that they want to read something. And the truth of the matter is, your reviews, your recommendations for books, for art, for films, they matter so much to every creator that you might support. So if you go see a band at your local bar, that band needs your support. And if you get a copy of one of my books, I need your support. And if you watch a live stream or go to a local theater or museum, they need your support. They don't just need you to come and see them. They really need you to tell people about how important they are. We as a community have to support one another. Oh my goodness. Hello everyone over on Twitch. I wasn't forgetting you there. I'm just so glad you're here. I'm going to do my best to read clearly tonight. And I will be redropping those links that I shared earlier. So, quick recap right before we get into the reading. I have 8 art prints available in my digital gallery. Do consider getting one. I'm going to create more. Some of them up there right now are limited, so they're only going to be up there until the run sells out. Case in point, there's one Moore's Madonna Peony Mist. When that sells out, there are no more of those. So pick yourself up an art print. Pick yourself up a copy of my book, Without the Light. And let's go ahead. Let's get into reading. Now, I already said this once. I'm going to say it once more before we start reading. And thank you, everyone over on Twitch, for being here, for just being awesome. Now, there is a trigger warning because this story does contain sensitive subject matter. It is up on the screen. It's in the description. It was also on our opening screen. But there's a trigger warning here because some of this is sensitive material. But please, oh please, consider getting yourself a copy of Without the Light Volume 1. Got the best people here. Okay, I'll just address this really quick because it's in the chat. Missed your daily lives this week. I have been sick. And I still feel a little bit yuck. But I'm getting better. And fortunately, I had the company of my best friend to help with a very long week. Thank goodness I had my bestie. made it all easier. But I am going to be staying very hydrated tonight. So do my best to read continuously for the next hour. If you haven't seen the first couple of the videos, each one's about an hour and a half. So they are on my YouTube, Your Saturday Night. You can watch the first 2 parts of this live reading of Without the Light Volume 1. But we're going to get into reading the 3rd part. Sometimes, even in a crowded room, you are alone. That's actually the name of the next chapter, but don't worry. We're going to get there. I'm glad I'm here tonight, too, and I'm glad all of you are here tonight. Oh, such a good time. Oh, oh, thank you so much. Yes, this lipstick here actually was part of a large set that my bestie got me because she's just awesome. So she bought me a bunch of lipsticks, and you know, we're gonna get through all of them, but I have some favorites. And this painting behind me is actually from my last art workshop. So I realize most of you haven't seen this one yet, but this is actually from my last art workshop that I just did. Consider signing up to one. All right. Now for Without the Light. Oh. Oh, goodness. I need to get a new copy of this because the what's in my mug at the moment, it's just some cider, just something so that I stay hydrated, but also a nice little bit of flavor. All right. So let's see where we were last time. I kept it. It is a super fun night here. Yeah, I gotta buy new versions of these books for myself because a lot has changed. Like the back cover has changed, and you know, the whole author page and all of that has changed. So I'm gonna have to pick up some new ones. So when we last left off, we were actually with Courtney, who had taken on the role of the man in the red suit, and he was going to visit the man in the red suit who'd now taken on the role of Courtney. If that's confusing, please feel free to watch the previous 2 chapters that were read. But we're going to pick up right with them, and I'm going to get to their conversation, which I think I already read, but we're going to read it again. And this is the former man in the red suit now living as Courtney. He's going to be the first one speaking. You feel that growing in you? That's an emotion. You have to learn not to do that. The others, they will use that weakness against you. It took me a long time to control emotions. But when you connect with someone, like you're connecting with me, you can feel again. It gets hard to ignore if you aren't careful. As he spoke, I understood what he meant. It must have been what happened to him when he was near me. Yet he always seemed so in control. He was more skillful than I was. I had to understand the powers I had, and then learn to control them, though all of that would have to wait until I got what I needed. I see. Be that as it may, I still need to know where the others are, I said, trying to regain composure. He smiled and flicked his cigarette over the edge. Listen, when it's time for you to find them, you will. Till then, you need to practice. I sent you into this new life blind, and you have to learn how to see all on your own. No one's going to hold your hand. Especially not me. Shit. I'm just human. The anger began to burn my face again, and I wanted to throw him through that sliding glass door. But I had to control myself. After all, he couldn't be lying, or else I would know. Enjoy what little life you have, Courtney. I doubt I will see you again, I said to him, and then faded from sight. As I made my way from his balcony, I heard him say something strange. Oh, you'll see me again. It's all too certain. His words made no sense. If I were to leave here and go off into the world again, he would probably be dead before I returned. So what did he mean? To concern myself with that now would just be wasting time, of which I had a great deal. I needed to understand what I was capable of and how to control it, which meant finding out what I was. Courtney kept what he knew to himself, so I had to find another who knew. I figured the best place to go was where people held information, a library of some sort. But what kind was the question? I could always pry what I needed from the minds of learned men, but I had to choose the right ones. No point in just stealing the thoughts of anyone. If only I had found some earthly creature of legend, one that I could question on the deeper secrets of the paranormal. Perhaps, though, there was one out there that I hadn't yet thought of, some legendary thing that had been missed by my observations. I had to find out if there were any out there. I tried to open my mind up to the world, to the thoughts of all things around me, hoping I would sense something inhuman amongst them. All the streams of consciousness were running through my mind like the currents of the ocean. It was a wild and almost overwhelming experience, so much thought and so many feelings. I couldn't bear it. I knew that much. Yet I had to open myself up as much as I could. I felt so awakened by all of it. It was like being in hundreds of thousands of places at once. The weight of all those people and all those minds became so great that I thought my own would break. Amongst all the growing noise, I made out something faint and different. The voice was soft, almost distant, like they were talking to me through a long tunnel. Then I heard it. What they were saying became clear as I focused on the voice, started to shut out all the others. "Who are you?" A soft and distant voice came through so clear that it actually startled me. I began to focus on it and tried to bring myself closer. "Where are you?" it asked me. The voice sounded like a child, but how could that be? When I finally found where it was coming from, I sent myself to the voice. As my surroundings became clear, I found myself in what I could only imagine as a farmhouse, out in the countryside. There was no child to be seen, so I thought I had missed my mark. That is until I heard the voice again. "I can't see you, but I know you're there." It was a child's voice, but I still didn't see them. I decided to make myself visible to whoever was speaking, and maybe that would entice them out. As I became visible, I realized that the house was empty. Quite literally deserted and uninhabited. "What's your name, mister?" The child's voice was still there, but I saw no one. "I am a friend, child. Where are you?" I asked, hoping to coax out whoever this little one was. "I'm right here. Can't you see me?" The little voice squeaked out. I looked down and realized that the voice was right at my feet now, though I saw nothing. I strained my eyes to focus in on the child. I still saw nothing. "No, I can't. What is your name?" I asked. "Lily. Why can't you see me, mister?" As she spoke, I tried to sharpen my focus. Knowing her name helped me infinitely. As she came into focus, the image appearing on a photograph, I saw the little girl standing in front of me, not more than 8 or so years old. Her chestnut hair and pigtails, teddy bear strangled to her chest. She was wearing a white dress with a black ribbon tied around the waist, but her feet were bare. "I can see you now, Lily." As I spoke, I crouched down to see her eyes. She was still hard to focus on, and sometimes when the light shifted along with the clouds outside, she faded in and out of my vision. "Where is your family?" I asked, trying to imitate the innocent voices I had heard in the past. "They moved out, but they forgot to take me. I've been waiting for them to come back for me." "How long ago did they move, Lily?" I asked, and I hoped that her answer would answer some of my questions. "I can't remember. It's been a long time, though. They packed up all my stuff first. Then Mommy got upset when I got my toys back out. She didn't yell at me, she just cried a lot." "Did they leave because of me, mister?" She was distant. It was all clear to me now that she was what I was looking for. She was a dead soul that hadn't left this world. I always saw them disappear after a little while, and maybe that is because they go wherever it is they belong, yet Lily is still here, and that means there is somewhere she can go, but maybe doesn't know how. Which means we both need to learn a bit. No, Lily. They didn't leave because of you. You're special. They wanted you to wait for me. I lied to her, but I had to. I needed her, and I needed her to trust me. I still wasn't sure why she was so hard to see, but maybe she was out of sync with this world, and for that matter, my world. "Are you going to take me to them, mister?" She seemed scared, but it's only natural. She's alone, like me. And a child can get easily scared when they're alone. I had to take her with me, but I was still unsure if I could. "Yes, Lily. I can take you back to your family. You can call me Courtney." I don't know why I told her that, but neither Mr. nor friend seemed appropriate for a name. She smiled when I said that name. Maybe it made her feel more safe. "I like your name. Can you help me find my shoes, Courtney?" She was so sweet, but I didn't feel the same kind of emotional pushing from her that I had felt from the other Courtney. I wondered why, but no time for that. "I will help you." "What do they look like?" I asked her. She smiled and looked at her bare feet for a moment. "They're black and have yellow flowers on 'em," she said as she started to crawl around on the floor. She seemed to be looking under things that weren't here anymore. I tried to focus on the shoes. I knew I could find them if I focused hard on it. After my mind cleared, I had an image of the shoes in my head. "Wait here, Lily. I will get your shoes," I said as she smiled at me. I had to leave the house briefly, finding myself standing over a grave in a moment. Her name was etched on the stone. She died some 14 years ago, but it was no matter. Her shoes are in the grave. I moved into the grave and then plucked the shoes from her tiny coffin. A feeling of filthiness came to mind, like I had done something wrong, but there isn't any harm in returning the girl's shoes. I returned to the farmhouse and called her name. At first I didn't hear anything, but then I saw her again. "Do you have my shoes, Courtney?" she asked. I held up the decrepit black shoes, and she smiled. As she reached out for the shoes, they seemed to change almost instantly. As she put them on her feet, the life and color returned to them. They looked brand new, and I found myself at a loss. Even she seemed to grow clearer after putting them on. I found I didn't need to strain so hard to see her anymore. It was like looking at a real person and not a ghost. Though I knew she was still very dead, I was almost touched by her change. "Is that better, Lily?" I asked. She moved her feet in all sorts of funny angles as if she was appraising her shoes for the first time. "Yes, I miss my shoes." She jumped out to hug me, and I worried that she'd pass right through me, like so many bad scenes in a ghost story. Yet when her arms wrapped around me, I felt warmth from her that I couldn't feel from humans anymore. It was at that moment I felt the emotional surge in my heart. I dropped down to my knees and hugged that little girl as if she was my own long-lost child. This must be how she feels. Like she's cared for again. I let go of her and leaned back. As I did, I saw the color of my hand had faded. It flickered like a broken light bulb. Looking up to Lily, I saw her flickering as well. As the flashes moved along, she shifted from looking very much alive to shining like an early morning dew. I don't pretend to understand what happened per se, but I had my ideas. It was almost like she was tapping into my power, as if I was a battery. I had to be more careful. If I wasn't, we could both be hurt. "Would you like to come with me now?" I asked with some genuine excitement. "Okay, Courtney." She held out her hand as she spoke. For a moment, I found myself dancing a thread of human memory. I was in the Bourbon Company again, holding my hand out for Genevieve. Alex was wrapped around my elbow, and I felt an overwhelming happiness. Briefly, I could smell the scent of the steaks and the vodka on Alex's breath. As I realized I had taken Lily's hand, I stood up and began to walk towards the door. I hadn't just walked out of a building in so long. It felt nice, almost relaxing. I hadn't ever taken someone else with me when I traveled by my mind, but I was going to try with Lily. When we stepped out in the sunlight, it was hard to see her clearly. She seemed like tinted glass. "Are you ready for something fun?" I asked her, not even knowing where I was taking her. "Mm-hmm. Yes, Courtney. Will you keep me safe?" She asked me, and that feeling of deja vu returned. I almost felt guilty when I answered her. "Dear Lily, I will keep you safe." Just saying it made me feel like a monster. The last time I heard those words spoken was when I was damned myself to this life. Though I don't regret it. I do wonder if I was a fool to have believed his words. I could see now that there is no end, only change. In a moment, the feeling of monstrosity faded away, and I looked down at Lily. She was such a lovely child. And it occurred to me that I hadn't ever really looked at a child until now. "Close your eyes, Lily." "Okay," she said in a sweet voice, and then she shut her eyes. I closed my eyes as well, and as soon as we were gone from that empty little house, I wasn't sure where to take her. So I did the only thing that made sense to me. As I felt everything changing around me, I held tight to Lily's hand. I didn't want to lose her after searching for so long for someone like her. When I opened my eyes, I was looking at the apartment door that once had been mine. "You can open your eyes now," I said. When she opened her eyes, she looked around to see where we were. She didn't ask any questions, she just smiled. My heart felt a tug, a feeling I wasn't accustomed to. I lifted my hand to knock on the door, and then I felt a sensation of fear. I didn't want to break it. Then I remembered the shoes. I'd picked them up and had caused no harm. Perhaps I was learning more than I realized. I knocked as gently as I could while making sure it was loud enough to get someone's attention. "Hold on!" A woman's voice came from inside the apartment. It must be Alex. She opened the door and looked at me, and then she looked at Lily. The look on her face wasn't confusion, but fear. "Is Courtney home?" I asked in a kind way. She looked into the apartment, then looked back at Lily and I. Come in. He'll be back in a minute." She led us into the apartment and motioned to a couch. He must have gotten more furniture over the years. She sat down at a chair beside the couch and waited for us to sit as well. I lifted Lily onto the couch and she giggled. Then I sat down myself. "How have you been, Alex?" I asked without thinking. Again, she gave me that look of fear, and I wasn't sure why. "Fine. Do I know you?" she asked. I could see that something was wrong, but I wasn't sure what. I decided to stay away from her thoughts out of courtesy. "We met a very long time ago. You probably don't remember me," I said innocently. She looked at Lily and smiled. "And what is your name?" Alex asked. Lily looked up at me and then looked at Alex nervously. "Lily," she looked back at me. "Courtney, why are we here?" "I need to see an old friend. He'll help us," I said to her. Alex looked a little more afraid now and looked at my eyes trembling. Are you the man in the red suit?" she asked me, trying not to shake. Her hands were tightly gripped around each other, and I could tell that Courtney had told her about me. I smiled and put my hand over my heart. If there was ever such a man, I would be him. Though I mean none of you any harm. I need to help Lily get home. And your dear Courtney can help me, I said in the most relaxing tone I could muster. Human emotions are easy to imitate with practice, but very difficult to get right. He warned me about you. I won't let you hurt him. She was trembling as she spoke. I looked down at Lily and put my hand on her little head. Would you like a drink, darling? Maybe something to eat? I asked her. She smiled and nodded. May I have some juice, please? Lily asked politely. Of course, Lily. I will get it. I looked at Alex and smiled, and then stood up and went to the kitchen. It was easy to find everything because little had changed. I wonder if Alex had been told anything I needed to know about myself. Though it didn't much matter. I was still curious. Lily and Alex sat in the living room in an awkward silence. I'm sure Alex didn't know what to make of her. Here you go, darling, I said as I handed the cup to Lily. Alex jumped slightly, having not seen me walk back, but to be honest, I hadn't walked at all. Sitting back down next to Lily, I smiled to Alex, and she leaned further away. I felt some sadness at this. After all, she had been with me first. Though that was in the past. So, where is Lily's home? Alex asked nervously. I don't know. Her family left her a long time ago, and now we need to get her home, I said plainly. Alex looks confused. She must have been wondering how Courtney could help me. After all, I didn't doubt he lied about who I was. There needed to be some deception, unless he wanted to scare the poor girl away. Soon I heard the sound of a key moving into the lock, and the door opened. Courtney, and I used the name loosely, came in with a handful of grocery bags. As he closed the door and looked into the room, he stopped dead in his tracks. I must have caught him off guard. What are you doing here? His first words, almost too familiar. I stood to face him, and he looked like I'd stolen his childhood. Without a single step, I crossed the room and stood face to face with him. I could hear Alex stifle a scream, and Lily just giggled. Lily thought the whole thing was a game of sorts. I liked that. I need to get a little girl to where she belongs. You will help me. I was blunt. He pushed past me and took his bags into the kitchen. I could hear him putting things away in a hurry. I turned and waited patiently. After all, time was something I had a lot of. When he came back out, he leaned over and kissed Alex on the forehead and then looked at Lily in a sad way. Does she know? He asked me. Does who know what? I replied. He crossed the room rather swiftly and grabbed my arm. Balcony, now, he said, sounding very pissed. I smiled and brushed his hand off my arm. His grip meant no more to me than food did now. I disappeared from his sight and moved to the balcony, staring into the apartment, waiting. He looked at Alex and gave her a motion, telling her to stay put, and then came out to join me. He lit up a cigarette when he got out there and began to pace. What does Alex know about you? He asked. I could ask you the same. I felt spiteful. He turned and looked in my eyes. I could see how human the years had made him. She knows that you are dangerous to us and that she can't fight you. That is all she needed to know. Did you tell her anything? Nothing related to us, friend. I came here for Lily. He looked inside at the girl on the couch. She's dead, isn't she? How long? He asked me with a sad look in his eyes. 14 years ago. I want to help her go where she belongs. It isn't easy, but it can be done. She needs to go to a gate, he replied, sighing. I looked at him with curiosity. He hadn't thought to tell me about these things before. However, it was for me then, and now he saw that it was about her. He sat down and took a puff off his cigarette. He looked up at me and offered one of his smokes. Though I felt no desire for it, I took it anyway. I hadn't tried to smoke since the change, so no harm in having one now. I took his lighter and lit the end, trying with all my might to inhale. Nothing, though. All my effort was unrewarded. Forgot about that. Sorry, Courtney said to me. Well, I tried. Just makes us both look foolish. So, where do I find a gate? I asked and put the cigarette on the railing. There aren't many anymore. Not like there used to be. The gates were built by something old to move in between worlds. There are a few left, though. And with a gate, you can take Lily to the next life. Just know that you can't go through it yourself. Not yet, he warned me. I tried to understand what he was keeping from me, but it still seemed strange that my own kind would be so terrible. I looked out over the city and picked the cigarette back up. So, do you know where I can find a gate? I asked while I inspected the white papers. They aren't always open, and I can't teach you how to open one. You have to figure that out. The best gate, though, is guarded. It's in Scotland. A mountain in the northern part hides it. When it is open, the Grey Man keeps people away from it, which includes you and Lily, he said with a small shudder. Are there any others I can count on? There are a few, but often used, but They're guarded as well, and I hate to say it, but others like you can hurt you. Just tell me where they are. Your options aren't very good, but they're all you have. There's a gate at the mouth of the Tigris and Euphrates. It's protected by Ananukai. Then there's the Citadel. Its gate hides in the forests of New Amsterdam. You shouldn't use that one unless you have to. It's a damn place, and you might never make it through. The only other one I would suggest is the Kamashira, but getting there means you need to be on the world's peak. It seems easy enough for someone who moves like you do, but as soon as you near the gate, you won't be able to move any faster than if you were a man. Your powers will be diminished, especially since you don't know how to use them. Courtney's words seemed well thought out and more cautionary than I thought was necessary. Though no doubt there was a good reason for it. I smiled for a moment, thinking about what Courtney had said the last time I saw him. He was right in the end. I did see him again. Perhaps he knew I would need his advice at some point, or maybe he just thought I would want to see him. Either way, I needed to get Lily to the other side, or wherever the dead are meant to go. It is strange that I should learn more about myself by helping this dead child. But if it takes me further along on my journey, then it's what I must do. Thank you, Courtney, I said. It isn't for you. Be careful with her. When you get to a gate, she'll be afraid. I will. I promise you. I felt that twinge of guilt again. It was such a strange feeling. In a blink, I was in the living room taking Lily's hand, and then in another, we were gone, leaving Courtney to explain to Alex what had happened. I'm sure he will bend the truth, or at least dance about it. In a way, I felt worse for Alex than I did for Courtney. She had to endure more lies than any of us. It was hard to know which gate to take her to, but I knew I had to choose wisely. If the others like me would try to stop us from crossing into the gate, I had to be ready to defend Lily and myself. No matter what, Courtney had said, I planned to go into the gate as well. It wasn't him facing the danger, it was me. I would escort Lily all the way into whatever afterlife existed, and see for myself if there was some sort of God in the universe. After all, I knew now for certain that I wasn't alone. More so, it had become clear that there is no end, only change. I hope everyone is enjoying this reading. Just going to share in the chat again really quick a link where you can pick up a copy of Without the Light Volume 1, Penance and Toil. And of course, if you get a copy, please leave a review or share it, tweet it, put it up on social media. I would appreciate it most tremendously. And I hope that you are having a absolutely wonderful Saturday night here for book night. Oh, my face is so itchy. Now, right before we get into the third chapter here, just check that. All right, everything is working the way it's supposed to. Now, thank you everyone for being here. We're going to start the third chapter. We're going to read a little way into that. I hope that you're liking this. I know that these chapters are short and we're moving right along, but this is so much fun and it's representative of not just years of work for me and years of continuation of a story and a concept. A lot of this is very deeply rooted in experiences and life and thoughts. Do tell me at any point in time, in comments, either now, in the future, whenever you wish, what you think about the story and anything that stands out to you particularly. There's so many little details here that might get looked over on the first listen through or the first read through. But I have a really bad habit of putting Easter eggs everywhere. All right. Let's get into the last half an hour of today's show, and we're going to get into Chapter 3, Part 3. Sometimes, even in a crowded room, you are alone. And thank you for all the emotes over there on Twitch. You're awesome. We got so many awesome people. One superstar right now. One superstar. Alright. Part 3. Sometimes, even in a crowded room, you are alone. The decisions one can make are not always for the best ends. Even when acting on the behalf of another, we often are seeking only to benefit ourselves. I felt that way now, and it wasn't far from true. I was telling everyone, including myself, that I was seeking out the gates so I could help Lily, but it was just as much for me. These places where the worlds converged were where I would find answers to my own mystery. Though standing at the base of a mountain, holding a little girl's hand, had taken on a more ominous intent than I had anticipated. She looked at me with caring eyes, the way she no doubt once had looked at her mother or father. Yet I was not the kind of person that could return her trust, or even the smallest amount of real emotion. The few feelings that ran through me were artificial and stolen from other people's hearts. However, it wasn't always that way. Once I could feel just like any human could. Though my new form didn't allow such emotional drives to still function properly, ultimately this life wasn't life at all. Though the more I thought about it, the harder it became to ignore the danger of what I might find guarding the gate ahead of me. Courtney, are you scared? Lily asked as her grip tightened on my hand. I looked down at her and faked a smile. No, Lily, I'm not scared. Are you? I asked her, trying to be concerned. She looked up at the mountain and then back at me. No, I have you to keep me safe, she said, hugging my hand to her side. In my head, I couldn't help but repeat the word monster, over and over again. I knew so little about the dangers ahead, but I knew I could keep her safe if I could get close enough to the gate ahead. Unsure about my chances against the things at the Citadel or the power of the Grey Man, I had chosen the Kamashira at the world's peak. I didn't know how big the mountain really was. In truth, it didn't even matter. The highest point, known as World's Peak. The humans had many names for it, and it didn't matter if one called it Everest, Sagarmatha, or Big Rock. In the end, it still scraped the edges of the atmosphere and held the promise of one of the few gates between worlds. I wasn't sure that what I had to do once I reached the top, but hopefully some manner of instinct would drive me. I wasn't sure, though. Let's go, Lily, and make sure not to let go of my hand. She nodded and squeezed, and then we took our first steps up the mountain. We covered several lengths of the mountain by blinking along, but soon I found that I had trouble moving very far that way. My mind could not move me as it normally did. Even my body began to feel as if it had weight to it. This must have been what Courtney warned me about. It felt strange to have to walk, and I did my best to keep Lily close to me. As we climbed further up the mountain, I felt a small sting of cold on my face. I almost forgot what cold felt like. I don't know why, but I looked down to make sure Lily was all right. A small wave of shock hit me as I saw she was shivering. Her hair had gathered some ice, and her face had all the signs of growing frostbite. I unbuttoned my suit jacket and wrapped it around her. She tried to smile at me, but her face was so stiff. I couldn't force her to walk any further this way. It bordered on cruelty and had no reason to be cruel to her. I scooped her up in my arms and held her to my chest. "Don't worry, Lily. I will keep you safe," I said to her, trying to be sincere. I wouldn't let her be hurt. I knew that much. I don't know if the feeling that started to fill my heart was compassion or worry, but it was strong. I had to try to moderate my emotions, though. The Kamishira was somewhere ahead of me, and I couldn't be caught off guard. It was getting so cold, and the feeling began to crackle through my skin. I hadn't felt this much pain in a long time, and it was strangely relieving. Yet Lily showed no signs of enjoyment in it, her little face so tired. I knew I had to give her capacity to suck in my power. I had to be a battery for her, and that meant opening up my heart to her. I had to connect with her the way I did in the farmhouse. She seemed to be dying in this cold, and though I couldn't understand why, I refused to let it happen. She was my only link to understanding, and more so I felt I had to protect her. She was so alone. I didn't want her to be hurt. She deserved to feel loved again. What was I thinking? Had I already started to open myself up to her? Yes, that must be it, and since I could feel her love, my legs started to feel so heavy. It was a strange sleepiness building in me. Was I giving too much of myself to her? I looked at her face, and I could see the flickering light I'd seen before, though it didn't seem to improve the fact that she was fading away up here. I wouldn't let her die. Where was the gate? Why couldn't I get there faster? I couldn't even see the peak from here. The snow and wind made it impossible to know where I was anymore. I felt helpless. I didn't know how to use my powers, or even what they were. How can I help Lily if I can't even help myself now? If another of my kind attacked me, I wouldn't be able to defend myself or Lily. Looking at her filled me with fear of losing her, and I couldn't lose her. I had to leave here now and get her to safety again. I had to leave. But all I was capable of doing was walking slowly forward. It was hard to tell if I was going up or down because the wind was pushing at my back just as much as something else was shoving at me from the front. If it was gravity, I couldn't tell. For all I knew, I was walking straight up and still had no idea where I was. A shudder ran through my spine and stopped me dead in my tracks. Something was here with us, and I didn't know where it was. Yet I would protect Lily with everything I had left in me. Turn back, and no harm will come to you. A voice blew in the wind past me. I searched the snowy, blinding air for the one speaking, but I couldn't see anything. I held Lily close to my chest and stood my ground. I can't turn back. This girl has to pass through the Kamishira. She needs to go through the gate. I spoke with as much strength as I could pull forward. The wind kept biting at my face and pushing at me like an angry mob. I stood my ground, though, because I had to take Lily all the way to the gate and then into the next world. This creature wouldn't keep me from my task. This is not your duty. You are the man in the red suit. You are not an escort. The voice seemed to be right inside my ears, but I wasn't going to let it frighten me. It must know what my purpose is. But sadly, I can't say the same. I may not be an escort, but I have promised this child I would keep her safe and take her home. I said, trying to be absolute in my quest. There is no way this being can deny me my right to help her. What did it know of promises and duty? The man in the red suit must watch and keep the balance. Is this girl part of the balance? It asked me in such a condescending tone that I wanted to call up the anger I'd felt with Courtney. Yet if I did, no doubt it would do no good. She is lost and cannot remain in this world. Please let us pass. I tried to bullshit my way through whatever bureaucratic nonsense existed for my kind. I had to make it past the Guardian. I needed more answers than the Earth could provide. Turn back. The man in the red suit may not pass. The girl is not part of the balance. The voice rushed past me. Carried by the wind, I could feel the anger bubbling up in me, and my face warmed despite the bitter wind. This thing attempted to stop me, but I would not have it. I had to take Lily and myself forward and enter the gate. I closed my eyes and tried to walk forward. I had to move forward and go into the gate with Lily. As hard as I tried, I couldn't seem to move forward, though. You refuse to turn back, so I must send you back. The voice stung my skin. There was a harsh cold. Then the wind became so strong I couldn't stand it any longer. When I opened my eyes, I was flying backward down the mountain. I clutched onto Lily, making sure I wouldn't lose her. The pain from the wind pushing through me was unimaginable. My bones, if I had bones, felt like molten metal, and my skin cracked like ceramic plate, smashing against the floor. When I finally hit the ground, it was like I was a nail being driven into a board. I couldn't stand or move, but I could still feel Lily in my arms. I hadn't lost her. And that was the only thing to be thankful for. If I had died, I'd be fine with that. As long as Lily was all right. I wouldn't lose her. I wouldn't give up. Now I had the strength of another being like me. I'd felt it. I had a mind to prepare myself for the next encounter with one. Lying on the ground, I drifted off into the memories of nearly forgotten. I was lying on the sidewalk again, looking up towards my balcony. Blood sat in my throat, and the light was fading away. I had fallen trying to keep the man in the red suit away. Had I known what he was doing to me, I probably wouldn't have taken anything from him. The pain of dying was so unbearable, and the cold cement was the only thing that told me I was still alive. I was dying. I couldn't stop it now. And he was right there, looking into me with his empty black eyes. Courtney, are you okay? Lily's voice broke my drifting memory. She was crouched over me, shaking my shoulder. There was a distinct worry in her eyes, and even though she was just a ghost, I think she was crying. I still couldn't move, but I tried to smile. I will be fine. Can you help me up? I asked with noticeable strain in my voice. She took my hands and pulled as hard as she could to try and sit me up. The cracking sound that issued forth from my body didn't sound very promising. Though she managed to get me up, I still had trouble moving and wasn't sure how long this weakness would last. Thank you, Lily. Can you forgive me? She didn't say much. She just hugged me and buried her head in my chest. I think she loves me in whatever way a child can. As soon as I could move, I put my arms around her and squeezed as tight as I could. Thank whatever God exists that I hadn't lost her. I don't know what I would do if she wasn't with me. We needed to go somewhere safe, and I had to plan the next journey towards a gate. This first attempt was sloppy and poorly thought out. I stood cautiously, not knowing if I had broken anything vital, and took Lily's hand. We needed somewhere to go, but there weren't any places I could think of to go. My mind was swimming in a muddy haze, and it was hard to know what to do. Courtney, what do we do now? Lily asked me, still seeming afraid. I thought about her question and wasn't sure how to answer her. I need to rest before we try again. Where would you like to go? I asked, not sure myself where to turn. Can we get waffles? Mommy used to take me out for waffles. It seemed like a good idea. As fortune would have it, the money clip was still in my pocket, and I hadn't really needed to use it until now. I nodded to her, and with a blink, we were traveling far away from that cursed mountain. I concentrated on the idea of waffles, and wondered if a ghost could eat. Then again, she had drank without trouble, so no doubt she could eat. As we arrived in front of a diner, I pulled out my money clip. It was a very habitual action. The thorns of life still had some hold on me, and many old habits die hard. We entered the diner, and I sat her down on a bench at a window booth. She always seemed to laugh when I picked her up like that, and I wondered why. A waitress came along, giving us the eye, as if we were somehow without welcome there, and then took Lily's order. The waitress seemed confused by my lack of hunger, but to calm her curiosity, I ordered a cup of coffee. I even remembered how I used to take it, black and strong. Lily drew a picture on the placemat with some crayons she found in the condiment caddy, and we waited on the waitress to return. Thank you so much out there in chat. Why don't you eat, Courtney? She asked as she doodled away with the crayons. I wasn't sure what to say, and was curious if she knew I wasn't human. I don't need to. I haven't needed to in a very long time, I said honestly. Maybe you should. I don't always want to eat, but if I don't, I won't be able to grow up. I felt the urge to laugh, but didn't. A laugh might make her think I didn't care what she said. I did care. And that confused me. Well, how about I try a bite of your waffles then? I teased her. No, you need to get your own. I won't have anything left if you eat all of mine. I couldn't help but smile, and I considered trying to eat, though I wasn't sure even if I could, and with the incident involving the cigarette still fresh in my mind, I decided not to. If I couldn't even breathe in, how could I swallow anything? When the waitress came back with Lily's waffles and my coffee, I thanked her. The coffee seemed to stare at me with a mocking set of invisible eyes. I wanted to try to drink some of it, but was unsure how well that would go. Lily poured far too much syrup on her waffles and then began to mash them apart with her fork. Her innocent actions made me long to feel the way she could. I watched her with wishing sight. Lifting the coffee cup, I made an attempt to sip some coffee, but was saddened by my inability to taste anything. I knew there was something in my mouth, but I could neither taste it nor feel any heat. Swallowing with all my effort, I managed to push the coffee down my throat, but received no pleasure from it. I'm sure if I tried, I could eat, but it'd be pointless. Why bother eating if I couldn't taste the food? Ignoring the facts, I pushed more coffee into my mouth and drank without any purpose. If nothing else, it made me appear more human to the few people who could see us here. Lily ate slowly, but I could tell by her face that she could still taste them. Even if she didn't need to eat any more than I did, she could still enjoy it. Jealousy tickled my mind, and I wished I could be as human as she was. Even if she had left her mortal body many years ago, she still had all the sensations of life. Emotion and human senses were her gifts, and I envied them. Though she didn't have the strength I did. As the light came through the windows, I saw that she wasn't fading anymore, and it made me nervous. Had she changed somehow since we returned from the world's peak? Maybe all the life she took from me had made her more tangible. Or maybe it was something else. Certainty wasn't a commodity. Certainty was a commodity I didn't possess at the moment, so for now it would have to remain an unanswered question. Pushing more coffee down my throat, I got the impression that there was something watching me, but it wasn't one of the pathetic, gawking humans in the diner. The feeling was sudden, and it made me wonder if whatever was watching wanted me to know. I knew I had the power to allow others to know when I was there, but it remained unknown to me if that worked on others like me and vice versa. Most likely, whatever was viewing me had just arrived, because I doubted the amount of perceptive power we had with one another. No, it seemed more likely that we were merely aware when another came close. I tried not to look stupid by turning my head about to find the other being. After all, we could be anywhere we want, and move as thoughts. So instead of looking for the watching creature, I would merely send out a mental invitation. Opening my mind mildly, I sent out a greeting, an invitation to sit at the table. If it was anything like myself, it wouldn't compromise our secrets by attacking me or using otherworldly powers in the view of these few people. Though I wasn't as prepared as I had hoped for the sight of another. It became clear that the old man walking out of the restroom is what received my invitation. He wore a long black robe, and his face was so aged that I thought it might crumble into dust if someone breathed on him. An enormous hood concealed all but his face, and the only thing I could see in common between us was the presence of silver rings on his fingers. He walked with gentle steps and didn't make even a single sound as he approached. No one seemed to see him, and I think that's exactly what he wanted. As he got to the table, I realized how high he towered above me. No body part save his hands and face could be seen, and I wondered if there was a body under his hulking robe. He sat down next to Lily, and I couldn't tell if she was aware of him. She'd finished her waffles and was playing with the syrup on the plate. She gave no sign of awareness of the new companion at the table. He didn't speak, really, though I heard his voice. It was like a direct telepathic private line. You tread dangerous waters. Be careful not to anger those who can take your immortal life from you. His words were more dispassionate than any I had ever spoken. There was complete detachment in him, and for the first time, I felt like I had more emotion in me than another. Oh my goodness, oh my gracious, we have got there. Yes, I'm stopping now. We got 9 minutes left of the show. I'm stopping now. Oh. I don't think I don't believe I've ever actually read this far into the book to any sort of audience before, so this is pretty fun. Thank you so much for all the comments. I'm really getting into this, as I'm sure you notice. The next time we get together for a reading, you're going to get to hear more about this new otherworldly entity, and that's exciting in itself. Yes, that's very true. Last time was very emotional for me, and I choked up a bunch the last couple read-throughs, actually. Nonetheless, there are some places to go I actually got kind of emotional this time, a couple of moments, and I'm like, no, we're going to keep going. I'm going to stay in character. We're going to have fun. So, okay, so just a few comments. Your narrative skills are so delectably, scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty good to me. Thank you so much. I like this one. The moral of this story is perseverance, tenacity, determination, desire, positivity, compassion. A lot of those things are most certainly there. Yes. Courtney and Lily going up World's Peak is definitely a big moment. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot more to come. At this point in time, though, I'm not going to give anything away. I mean, each time I come on to read to you, there's spoilers. If you haven't gotten into any of my fiction, there's lots of spoilers for everyone, and it's fun. And there's so much more to take into this. But there is a great deal of perseverance and desire. Perseverance and desire. So we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep this series going. We are going to read through the entirety of Without the Light Volume 1, Penance and Toil, together through these streams. Now, I have only gotten into the 3rd chapter of the book, and of course it's taken roughly 3 hours to do that, so there's going to be a lot more coming. Thank you for all the emotes. Thank you for being here. Definitely, if you have any impressions, thoughts, or ideas, feel free to put them in the chat, or go to my YouTube your Saturday night. Leave comments, predictions, or thoughts about characters there. That would be awesome. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna get that. Got to get that link and put it right here. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. At this point, I don't know how many more read through episodes this is gonna take. How many different videos this is gonna take? But we're gonna have a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy Courtney and other Courtney. And I realize that if you haven't seen the first 2, you should go see those. That way it gives context as to why there are 2 Courtneys. And I hope you like Lily. Lily is one of my favorite characters, and I know I'm biased as the author, because as the author you want to love all of your characters. I don't. But Lily is one of my favorite characters for a lot of reasons. She's so much fun, and it changes the landscape so much for this story. So I hope that you're enjoying Lily's introduction as well. Thank you for the emotes. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that I managed to get through all of this with very minor issue from my throat. Now, I am going to say right now, next Saturday, there will be another read-through, but I'm only ever going to do 2 weeks in a row of the live reading, and then that's going to be interspersed with other fun things like film talk, painting, on stream, things like that. So just consider it 2 weeks in a row. You can come join me for reading, and then we'll have a week in between to paint or talk about film or something, have fun together, and that's going to be the schedule going forward until we finish the book. I hope that sounds like a lot of fun to all of you. And do consider signing up to one of my art workshops, which are going, I honestly, I will say phenomenal. They're a lot of fun. There's a lot going on. And we have all sorts of new stuff. I actually have new merch in my Bonfire store, specifically for the art workshops. In my digital gallery, there's the new art prints. So there's a lot coming, and there's a lot more on the way. There's going to be more re-releases of books, etc. Just stay along with everything. We're going to get to it all. Thank you for being here, though. I'm about to get out of here. KDJ, you want to see emotion next week? It might come up. It's okay for everyone to cry. Had that conversation once before. All right. I am out of here, though. So take care. Be excellent. I have a cat that's just jumped up onto the back of my chair. It's awesome. He can't help himself. All right. All right. Take care, everybody. Be excellent. I will see you all again real soon. And, take it easy. And have a wonderful Saturday night.